to the place where everything old is new again. Nostalgic review. For today's review we're travelling back to 1971 and the British Hammer horror film, Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, based on the 1886 novella, Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson.
Everyone knows there are two sides to the infamous Dr. Jekyll. By day, the man. By night, the monster.
Put a woman in your life, a good woman, and one day you'll wake up and you'll see a changed man.
Now, Hammer believe you too are ready for a change. An absolutely complete change.
This is the testament of Dr. Henry Jekyll, male, male, male.
It's Hyde, isn't it? How is your brother?
He hasn't been himself of late.
This is the new Dr. Jekyll, the most evil woman you'll ever see. This is the sensuous Sister Hyde, the most evil man you'll ever meet.
Stay away from her. She means you great harm.
Why?
I just feel it, that's all.
Dr. Jekyll, Sister Hyde. Man or woman. Or both. In this film, you will actually see the sinister Dr. Jekyll change in mind and body into the totally evil Sister Hyde.
It is I who exist, Dr. Jekyll, not you. It is I who will be rid of you. Rid of you! Rid of you!
Hammer invites you to share the agony of a man whose body is possessed by a strange passion to murder and beyond.
They must be female, no more than 20 years old.
There will be a different kind of victim tonight. And then the tug-of-war will be ended between us. Fascinating situation, don't you think? It'll be interesting to see who wins.
Directed by Roy Ward Baker, it stars Ralph Bates and Martine Beswick in the titular roles. Oh, if you haven't already guessed it, I intend to walk you through the entire film, and that's as much of a spoiler warning as I'm prepared to give for a movie that's been out since the 70s. As with most Hammer horror features at the time, the film begins with a murder. Springfield Jack is on the loose, and no lady of the night out on her own is safe. Meanwhile, Henry Jekyll is a doctor who dedicates his life to the curing of all known illnesses. The problem is his experiments take too long, and his friend, Professor Robertson, points out that Jekyll will be dead by the time he makes a breakthrough. Something about that remark gets to Jekyll, and he abandons his studies in search of an elixir of life. He begins using female hormones because he reasons they will help him extend his life, since women traditionally live longer than men. He makes an arrangement with the murderers Burke and Hare to use the fresh cadavers of their victims. Susan Spencer, along with her brother, Howard, an elderly mother, live in the apartment above Jekyll. Susan has the serious horn for Jekyll, and he feels the same, but is too obsessed with his work to follow through. Jekyll's serum with the female hormones works like a charm, but it comes with a side effect. It changes Henry's sex, transforming him into a beautiful woman. The problem? She's evil as hell. At first Susan becomes jealous when she discovers this mysterious woman, But Jekyll explains the sudden appearance of his female alter ego away as his widowed sister, Edwina Hyde. And because we moviegoers thrive on relationship drama, Howard develops the horn for Edwina and vice versa. Things should be hunky-dory now, but where's the fun in that? So, Jekyll discovers his serum requires a regular supply of female hormones to maintain its effect, which means more young ladies need to meet their untimely end. But when Burke and Hare are discovered, Burke is lynched by a mob and Hare blinded by Lime. Jekyll is forced to take matters into his own hands and he begins committing the murders attributed to Jack the Ripper. While Henry abhors this, Edwina relishes the killings, and as she begins to take control, she even seduces and kills Professor Robertson when he starts questioning her about Jekyll's possible involvement in the murders. As Mrs. Hyde grows more powerful, the two personalities begin to struggle for dominance.
We'll see who wins.
We'll see.
Jekyll asks Susan to the opera. However, when he's getting dressed to go out, he unconsciously takes Mrs. Hyde's gown from the wardrobe instead of his own clothes, realizing that he no longer needs to drink the serum in order to transform. Susan is heartbroken when Jekyll breaks their opera date, but she decides to go alone. However, Mrs. Hyde decides that innocent Susan's pure blood is just what she needs to finally take over Jekyll's body for good. Edwina stalks Susan through the dark streets, but Jekyll's personality manages to push to the surface long enough to thwart Mrs. Hyde's attempt to kill Susan. In order to stabilize his condition, Jekyll must commit one last murder, but is interrupted by the police who are tipped off to the similarity between Jekyll's earlier experiments on cadavers and the Ripper murders, by Hare, who turned snitch. Jekyll tries to make his escape by climbing along the outside of a building, but he transforms into Mrs. Hyde and since she lacks his upper body strength, she ends up falling to the ground and lies dying on the cobblestones as a twisted amalgamation of both man and woman. My take on the film? When it comes to Hammer horror films, I run hot and cold. Back in the day when Christopher Lee donned the cape as Dracula, I couldn't get enough. Sadly, those films, like nearly 50% of the Hammer horrors, haven't aged well for me. There are so many things wrong with this film, but I can't deny that it explores a lot of interesting ideas as well, and given the time period it was made in, it's surprisingly progressive. Now, are there transgender issues here that need to be addressed? Possibly, but that's not in my wheelhouse, so it's not for me to say. I read somewhere that Ralph Bates wanted to play the part of Edwina Hyde in drag when the film producers were having trouble casting the part due to the nudity. I would have been interested to see what that looked like. Martine Beswick is actually quite good in the role, which would be a tough gig for any actor, but she plays it well. I thought the transformation scenes were nicely handled. The filmmakers elected not to use any of those old corny crossfades from the 1930s Wolfman features. I would have liked to see more interaction between Jekyll and Susan, Jekyll and Howard, Hyde and Susan and Hyde and Howard, chiefly because the Susan and Howard characters could have been fleshed out a little better. I didn't realize until after the film that the Burke and Hare characters were real, so looking them up after the film was over was an added bonus. In real life, These men were grave robbers who sold bodies to doctors in Scotland, killing 16 of them themselves, in the mid-19th century for medical research and anatomical studies. In conclusion, this is not a great film, nor does it provide an accurate depiction of Victorian society, but to date I haven't seen a proper adaptation of this story brought to the small or big screen. That doesn't mean that I didn't find the film fun. I know this comment is going to result in cries of wokeness, but I'd be interested in seeing a remake written and directed by women. Have you seen the film? If so, why not share your thoughts and opinions in the comments section? Until next time, thanks for watching.